right, the machine is now closed. Clerk will tally the roll. 19 ayes, 31 noes. This bill has been defeated.
Indiana has just delivered one of the biggest political shocks of the 2026 cycle, and it came from inside Donald Trump's own party. Indiana's Republican-controlled Senate voted down a congressional map designed to give the GOP complete dominance in the state, and they did it despite months of aggressive pressure from President Trump himself.
Mr. President, in Indiana, just a few moments ago, the Senate there rejected the congressional maps to redistrict in that state. A number of Republicans voted against that redistricting effort. You have spent a lot of time talking about this. The Vice President traveled to Indiana. What's your reaction?
Well, we won every other state. That's the only state. It's funny because I won Indiana all 3 times by a landslide, and I wasn't working on it very hard. Would have been nice. I think we would have picked up 2 seats if we did that. You had one gentleman, the head of the Senate, I guess, Bray, whatever his name is. I heard he was against it. He'll probably lose his next primary, whatever that is. I hope he does, but because he's done a tremendous disservice. I mean, think of it. It's a great place. I love the people there. They love me. You know, we won in a landslide all 3 times. Got tremendous votes. I got record votes. And then there's no reason for doing that. And the Democrats do it to us, so I can't imagine that they do it. But I wasn't very much involved. But there's a man named Bray, as I guess, head of the Senate. Was that Bray? Is that the name, Bray? I mean, I'm sure that whenever his primary is, it's, I think, in 2 years, but I'm sure he'll go down. He'll go down. I'll certainly support anybody that wants to go against him.
The proposed map would have handed Republicans all 9 of Indiana's House seats, wiping out the state's 2 Democratic districts, splitting Indianapolis into 4 GOP-leaning regions, and reshaping Representative Andre Carson's stronghold beyond recognition. But after weeks of threats, lobbying, and even warnings of primary challenges, Indiana Republicans said no. The final vote, 31-19. Senator Spencer Deery, one of several Republicans who defied Trump, put it plainly.
The federal government should not dictate by threat or other means what should happen in our states.
Top Trump advisor James Blair worked on lawmakers' phones constantly. Outside groups like the Heritage Foundation and Turning Point USA poured in money, pressure, and political muscle. Still, it failed.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Mr. President, members of the Senate, my fellow Hoosiers. Today we find ourselves at a crossroads that very few legislatures in the history of this state have ever had to navigate. The vote we are about to take is not simply procedural. It's not just about lines on a map. It's a vote of critical, epic proportion that will define Indiana's role in the recovery of this republic. I've heard the word unprecedented thrown around like an accusation. Those opposed say redistricting in the middle of a decade is breaking with tradition. They say we're changing the rules. To them, I say this. When your house is on fire, you don't worry about whether or not you're traditionally holding the hose the right way. You do whatever it takes to put out the fire. And make no mistake, for the last 4 years, our country was burning. We are only now in this last year beginning to clear the smoke and to see the light again. Friends, the courts have spoken clearly on this matter. The question of legality is settled. We have the constitutional right, and I would argue the moral obligation, to draw the districts that reflect the political will and the value of the people who elected us. But today, I am not here to argue the legalities. I'm here to argue the necessity. The White House, our partners in Washington, have asked us for help. They've not asked for money. And I've talked to almost everyone in my caucus, and not one of them has told me that they've been threatened by the White House. So if it's happened, I'm unaware of it.
Inside the chamber, Democrats warned that eliminating competition would poison the state's democracy. Outside, protesters shouted, "Vote no," and held signs reading, "Fair maps" and "Losers cheat." Republicans hold the U.S. House by only a few seats. Mid-cycle redistricting has already created new battlegrounds across the country. The loss in Indiana could cost the GOP crucial leverage in what Trump himself calls an existential fight for control of Congress.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to members of the Senate. Senator Gaskell, just as I prepare to ask you these questions, if there's a question that you've already answered somewhere else, please just tell me that and when you answered it, and we'll move on. Senator Gaskell, a few questions in regards to the maps that we see here in front of us. Is this map being installed because other states did mid-decade redistricting like Texas or California?
Well, I don't know why Representative Schmaltz brought the bill. I could speculate, but I could tell you why I sponsored it. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. I believe that there is an imbalance in the House of Representatives today, and this is an attempt to try to, in small part, offset that imbalance.
Thank you. Has Indiana ever redrawn congressional districts mid-decade before without a court order requiring it to do so?
I don't know. I've heard some folks say that it was attempted in 1995, but I've not confirmed that on my own.
Did it make it this far to where it was on the floor?
I'm not aware.
Okay. Are there any legal issues with our current congressional maps? If you like, I can elaborate to make it maybe easier for you to answer. Do we have any legal problems with the existing maps that we have that we are currently under right now?
I don't know.
Thank you. It's my understanding, and you can correct me if I go wrong, that this map here was drawn with the 2020 census data. What have you done to ensure that this mid-decade redraw is not malapportioned? And what I mean by that, there's a requirement under the Constitution that all of the congressional seats have to represent the same number of people. What measures have you taken to make sure that these maps actually comply with that?
Well, unfortunately, the census data is only provided to us once every 10 years, so we use the most recent that we have.
Right, but what have you done to make sure as of today, because if we pass these maps today, that would be the congressional districts. What have you done to make sure that it complies with the Constitution of Indiana?
I'm not sure what you're suggesting by that. I mean, any time redistricting is done, it's done with the most recent census. And then by the time you come around to the end of the decade, obviously things have changed.
Right. So since 2020 was the last time we did that, do you think things have changed since then? We are now in 2025. So I guess that's the question I'm asking. Since this is 2025, I'm sure the numbers may have changed a little bit. So what have you done to ensure that the numbers that 2020 showed us are actual true today?
So are you suggesting that we should consider replacing the existing map because things have changed?
No, I can't answer your question, but what I'm asking actually, and I'll move on.
Yeah,
I'll
I
move
understand that was a rhetorical
Yeah,
question, but
okay.
it was my answer to your question.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll move on from that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you done anything to make sure these maps comply with the U.S. Constitution, racial gerrymandering prohibition pursuant to the 14th Amendment?
I believe that these maps were drawn specifically with political data
Okay.
and not racial data.
So no racial data was taken into consideration.
The only factor in these maps were political in nature.
Thank you. What have you done to make sure that these maps comply with the Indiana Constitution and relevant case law regarding redistricting, voting rights, and equal protection, as well as the separation of powers, which are all in our Indiana Constitution? Did you consider any of those things when actually supporting or sponsoring this map?
I believe that this map complies with all state and federal laws, the federal Constitution, and the state Constitution.
Okay. What did you do to ensure that that is actually true?
I believe that this map complies with all state and federal laws,
Okay.
the U.S. Constitution, and the Constitution of the state of Indiana.
Thank you. Can so the next question was going to be, can you tell me how you made sure they were compliant? I guess it would be the same answer you just gave.
I believe that they are compliant with all state and federal laws, with the Constitution of the state of Indiana and the Constitution of the United States of America.
Okay. 2 more questions, I'll be done. Thank you for your time. Were you aware of any population changes between 2020 and now? And if so, which demographic group has grown and which ones have gone down from a demographic standpoint?
I'm not aware of any official census taken by the United States Department of Commerce since the 2020 census.
Okay. Last question. This would be available to us. As a matter of fact, we talk about it every year. Which areas of Indiana have grown since 2020, and what areas of Indiana have shrunk as far as population since 2020?
I'm not sure how you would make that determination without conducting an official census.
Okay, so we don't do updates on numbers of counties and residents during like legislative session or anything?
I'm not aware of any official census being taken since 2020.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Gaskell, for answering my questions. I have no more further questions, President.
Thank you, Senator.